What is going on, guys? We're back with more picks and predictions this weekend. The UFC is still in Las Vegas for a fight night headlined by Roman Dolidze and Anthony Hernandez. We did pretty good last week. We hit on Neil Magny as an underdog. We also hit on Pullaev by KO at plus 200 odds and a couple other cool bets last week. Overall, did pretty well on the card. We got a pretty interesting card this week, so without further ado, let me jump right into the picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 109. The first matchup is a late addition to the card. We got Cody Brundage versus Eryk McConico. If you don't know Eryk McConico, he made his UFC debut earlier on this year. Took a chance up against Nursultan Ruziboyev on short notice. Did get knocked out, but obviously Ruziboyev, very tricky UFC debut to make, and especially on short notice. But McConico overall, he is tough, but I think that Cody Brundage here, a lot of the experience advantage is going to be on his side. He's coming off a draw against Mansour Abdul Malik where, he was 1-1 going into that third round. He was massive plus 500 underdog going into that matchup. I picked Brundage to win that fight actually against Mansour Abdul Malik. So interesting matchup, but overall, got that one overturned to a draw. He was keeping up with Mansour pretty well. And we know Brundage, he's got power in the hands. He seemed more patient there. His striking looked clean. We know he can wrestle too. McConico is tough though, and I think that, Brundage obviously can be chinned. He can be hurt. That's something to look out for. But I'm going to go with the experience of Cody Brundage here. I think, his patience in that Mansour Abdul Malik fight looked pretty good. I think that draw is actually a pretty good one on his record. Really weird third round. Should never have ended in a win for Mansour Abdul Malik in the first place, and did get overturned, rightfully so. So I'm gonna go with Cody Brundage here. I think he does get it done. I think that his experience will prevail. I think he's in a good spot in his career to kind of chase some wins. And I think Eryk McConico, a very winnable matchup for him. So I'm gonna go with Cody Brundage to get it done. I think he gets it done by decision this weekend. Obviously that's weird for a Cody Brundage fight, but I do think he gets one done by decision. Next up, we got Gabriella Fernandes versus Julija Stoliarenko, and I'm going to go with Gabriella Fernandes here. I think that she is a better striker here. I think she's the overall better fighter, but Stoliarenko realistically is going to have to get this fight to the ground, look for a sub, and she is pretty good on the ground. She can definitely make things happen on the ground, but I think that Fernandez's takedown defense should hold up. Still, pretty quick breakdown. I think overall, as long as Fernandes stays up on the feet, she'll be fine. Like I said, she is the better striker. At the end of the day, though, something you'll see pretty, often on this card is that this card is just full of massive favorites, and are you really going to put minus 400 down on Gabriella Fernandes? I doubt it. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, be my guest. But, this fight could definitely play out pretty weird. But from a breakdown perspective, I'm going to have to go with Gabriella Fernandes. I think she can keep the fight standing. I think she should be able to piece up Stoliarenko as the fight is standing. But, if the fight does hit the ground, weird things can happen. So I'm going to go with Gabriella, but I think minus 400 for a fighter like Gabriella is just not worth it. Next up, we got Uros Medic versus Gilbert Urbina. And to be honest, give me Gilbert Urbina to get this one done. Uros Medic, massive favorite here, minus 450. And he's just one of those fighters that I just can't trust anymore. Urbina will shoot a shit ton of takedowns here. And I think on Uros Medic, he will land some. So we know Medic, better striker. He's going to want to keep this fight standing. But Urbina can be unorthodox on the feet. We just saw Medic get knocked out by Soriano, who just exploded early in the fight, put Medic away. And I think that, Urbina is unorthodox. He won't stand back and just get pieced up by Medic. He's going to bring the fight to Medic. And, he could get knocked out. Medic can definitely put Urbina away here. And I think that if Medic does win, he's going to be knocking Urbina out. But I think that Urbina will bring the fight to Medic. He'll push the pace on Uros Medic here. And I think that he will shoot takedowns. He'll mix it up. Maybe Medic just does land the knockout, but at minus 450, I'm not picking him because I think that there is holes in Uros' game, and I think Urbina is the type of fighter that could potentially expose them. Obviously, this may be a little bit biased because I'm just, someone that just doesn't trust Uros Medic at this point. But I think that Urbina can, make things tough on Medic. And so far, when things have gotten tough, we've seen Medic fold. So I'm going to go with Urbina to get this one done. Let's move on to the next matchup. Next up, we got Joselyne Edwards versus Priscila Cachoeira. And I'm going to go with Joselyne here. I think that she's just better everywhere. It's going to be a pretty short breakdown. I think, for all these lines, Joselyne is actually fairly affordable at minus 370 compared to, Gabriella Fernandes being minus 400, Uros Medic being minus 450. I think that minus 370, potentially somewhere in a two-leg parlay, you can throw Edwards. I think that Edwards is better everywhere here. Cachoeira, is going to want to land big, but Edwards is a better striker. She's a higher volume striker. She's a better kicker. She fights better at range. She's probably the slightly better grappler as well in this matchup. So I think that Edwards has the advantage everywhere. Cachoeira, going to look to land something big, but it's women's MMA. I don't think she's going to find that shot. And I think overall, This is actually a fairly playable line in comparison to a lot of the other lines you're going to see this week. So I'm going to go with Edwards here. Like I said, I think she's better everywhere here, except for the power, which I think, the advantage does go to Cachoeira. But I see Edwards getting it done on the cards. Let's move on to the next matchup. Next up, we got Elijah Smith versus Toshiomi Kazama. And simple breakdown here, Elijah Smith minus 700. And, he's probably going to be worth that price tag. He's better everywhere here once again. Kazama, probably just a submission or bust in this scenario. Kazama can make things happen on the ground, but Elijah Smith, powerful wrestler, has power in his hands, will be quicker on the feet, will probably be the better striker here too. So all the advantages go to Elijah Smith, and he's already passed his UFC test. He fought Vince Morales, who's a tough UFC debut, in my opinion. If you do beat Vince Morales, you're definitely UFC caliber. So Elijah Smith should win this one. He's better everywhere here. Minus 700 is going to be hard to play, but maybe you could potentially play a prop in this fight. So I'm going to go with Smith. He'll probably be worth that price tag. Still hard to parlay at that price, but, he should get this one done in all aspects. Next up, we got Julius Walker versus Raffael Cerqueira, and I'm going to go with Julius Walker here, but once again, man, absolutely insane favorite. Minus 650 on the line, and I kind of understand Raffael Cerqueira has been, very underwhelming since he's joined the UFC. 2 losses, both by knockout. Got absolutely starched by Ibo Aslan, who hasn't even looked good in his last couple fights. So, Ibo's not looking too hot and starches Raffael Cerqueira. Then Cerqueira gets knocked out by Modestas Bukauskas, which, in my opinion is probably a better loss than Ibo Aslan at this point. And, Julius Walker being minus 650 here. He did have that split decision loss against Alonzo Menafield, who is good UFC level comp, so I do kind of understand. But at the end of the day, these guys are going to slug it out. There's probably going to be a knockout here. I think the under is probably the best bet in this fight if you do want to take it. But overall, Walker is shown to be a little bit better. Cerqueira has good tape on him, but everything that's kind of good on the Cerqueira side has happened on the regional level, and we've clearly seen that as he comes to UFC level comp, he has not been performing to what we see in the tape on his regional side. So I would tell you that, Cerqueira is dangerous and can knock a bunch of people out, but he just hasn't shown that at the UFC level just yet. So I'm going to go with Julius Walker here. He kept up with Menafield, and overall, I think that he will find the knockout punch on Cerqueira, who has been knocked out in his last 2 fights. And yeah, let's move on to the next matchup. Next up, we got Eryk Anders versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Once again, a massive favorite. This one probably more worth it than like the Julius Walker that we just broke down, but CLD minus 460. And see, I would way rather play this over the minus 650 for Walker, but at the end of the day, these are all terrible lines to play, so I'm pretty upset about this card on the betting side. But CLD, he should be able to kind of do whatever he wants to Eryk Anders here. CLD super strong. The takedown defense has started to look better. Maybe he even shoots offensively from time to time. Probably not in this fight though against Eryk Anders. I think overall he stays standing. He pieces Eryk Anders up. Anders is tough though, so I could see this going all 3 rounds. But overall, CLD should take this one over. And let's move on to the next matchup. Next up, we got Miles Johns versus Jean Matsumoto, and I'm gonna go with Matsumoto to win this matchup. I think that he is still a little bit too wide at minus 270 right now. I think that Miles Johns does pose an interesting threat to Jean Matsumoto because Miles Johns is one of those fighters that's hard to bet against. He's got power on the feet so he can hurt people, and he has a good, strong wrestling so he can definitely, shoot some good takedowns if needed in a fight, rack up some control time, which is why it's hard to bet against the Johns. But overall, I think that Matsumoto, while he is coming off his first career loss, split decision against Rob Font, and obviously Rob Font, legit fighter, ranked fighter in the UFC. And I think that Matsumoto arguably could have won that fight against Rob Font, but in general, in this matchup against Miles Johns, I think that Matsumoto should land more volume. That being said, I think Miles Johns will land potentially the more meaningful strikes on the feet that, could potentially hurt Jean Matsumoto. So that is something to note, but I think that Matsumoto should out-volume Miles on the feet. On the ground, I think this is kind of 50-50 where Miles Johns has the better wrestling, but I don't think he'll be able to hold Jean Matsumoto down. Matsumoto should be able to get back to his feet if he does get taken down. And on top of that, I think that Matsumoto will be more threatening with the submissions if this fight does get to the mat with his jiu-jitsu skills. So I think that Matsumoto has, more danger on the ground and can out-volume on the feet. So I'm going to give it, slightly lean towards him, but minus 270 is going to be hard for me to play here. I'm probably just going to play an over round on this one because I think that the over should be good. I think both these guys are durable, and I think that Matsumoto, I don't see him subbing Miles Johns, so I think that he should be able to, hold his own, but at the end of the day, I do see it going over 2.5 rounds. So I'm going to play that potentially, but slight lean does go towards Jean Matsumoto by decision. Let's move on to the next matchup. Next up, we got Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez, and Andre Fili, while I think he is potentially the more skilled fighter here. Christian Rodriguez, we know by now, is durable. We know he's not just going to let a fight get away from him. He's going to bring the fight to you. He's going to be up in your face. I think that if Andre Fili can just strike C-Rod from the outside, he will win this one. But I just don't see C-Rod letting that one happen. C-Rod had a pretty good performance against Melquizael Costa. He almost pulled that fight off. Andre Fili got, absolutely kind of dominated by Melquizael Costa. But, not looking at it from an MMA math perspective, but in general, I think that C-Rod will push the pace on Andre Fili. I think that the second and third round, we're going to see C-Rod taking over. That first round is going to be interesting. So if you want to bet on C-Rod, you can also potentially wait till the end of the first round, live bet him in that second round, especially if, Fili does start a little bit better. But I think overall, the cardio, the pace, C-Rod just being more of a dog than Andre Fili, being more durable than Andre Fili. I just think that's what's going to happen in this matchup. I think C-Rod takes over. I think he beats Fili up to a decision. Let's move on to the next matchup. Up next, we got Iasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill. And I'm going to go with Angela Hill to win this one. Give me the underdog here. I think that Iasmin Lucindo, she's going to have to get takedowns here. Angela Hill is a tough vet to beat on the feet just by pure volume. I don't think Lucindo has the volume to beat Angela Hill on the feet. I think that overall, she's going to want to shoot takedowns here, and Hill has good takedown defense. She can definitely keep a fight standing. Iasmin Lucindo going to a split decision with a fighter like Marina Rodriguez really gives me confidence in Angela Hill here because, Marina Rodriguez can't defend a takedown to save her life, but, she will put stuff together on the feet. Angela Hill here, I think, is a similar matchup, but with way better takedown defense than a Marina Rodriguez. Obviously, Lucindo, the more well-rounded fighter here, but she's only 23. I think she has shown flashes of being really skilled, but, so far, nothing insane for me to just kind of take her over Angela Hill, who's, tested, tried. We know that, she'll fight for your money. We know that she's going to be, a dog in there. So I'm going to take Angela Hill out plus money. I think it's a pretty decent spot. I think she can defend the takedowns and just out-volume Lucindo. It's going to be a close fight, though. Probably split decision somewhere here, but, plus 180 for the fighter that I think is more likely to win that split decision. I'll take that, all day. So give me Angela Hill. Let's move on to the co-main event. Next up, we got the co-main event, which is Steve Erceg versus Ode Osbourne. Once again, a massive favorite in this fight. I'm going with Steve Erceg. He's minus 600. I think he should be able to get back in the win column. He's had some Dominic Reyes type of career up until now, goes toe-to-toe with Pantoja, loses a close decision in that fight, and then since then, loses to Kai Kara-France, gets knocked out, then, loses to Brandon Moreno as well. So now he's coming up against Ode Osbourne. Initially was supposed to fight Alex Perez here. Ode Osbourne obviously taking it on short notice. Osbourne obviously does have the potential to chin Steve Erceg. He can land, some weird kick. He is rangy. He does like his kicks as well. Overall, though, I think that Steve Erceg should be able to just wrestle him here. Don't take any chances. I think that Erceg is a much better fighter as long as, he doesn't do anything stupid and Osbourne doesn't just catch him and knock him out. He should win this fight. Minus 600, I kind of do get it. Erceg is the better fighter. On a little bit of a skid, though, so hopefully he gets his shit together. But I think that he should get this one done. He could submit him, but I think he gets this one done by decision. And in the main event, we got Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Dolidze. And, Anthony Hernandez has looked super good so far. Roman Dolidze hasn't looked as good, but Roman Dolidze still finds a way to get the win. He's 15-3. I believe his last loss was to Nasruddin Imavov, who's literally in the title picture for the middleweight division right now. So Roman Dolidze, he is really good. And especially on the ground, we know Roman Dolidze can make things happen from a submission standpoint. But Anthony Hernandez, bro, he will push the pace. He's a strong grappler. He'll be all over you, smother you like a wet blanket. And overall, there's a 5-round fight. Dolidze has had cardio issues. I have to go with Anthony Hernandez. I think that in the first round or first 2 rounds, Roman Dolidze will be overpowering. He can be strong. Maybe Hernandez struggles to take him down. Maybe Dolidze just kind of bullies him around the octagon a little bit. But, after that second round, the pace that Fluffy's going to push, if he does survive going into that third round or, midway through the second round, somewhere around there, you're going to see a big tide change in this fight. So I think that Dolidze can look good early, but I have to pick Hernandez. Hernandez has been durable as of late, so I'm going to pick Hernandez to win this one. I think Dolidze has to get him out of there quick because once he starts gassing, that pace that Hernandez is going to push on Dolidze is going to be something that Roman Dolidze cannot handle, especially for 5 rounds. So give me Anthony Hernandez here. The line, kind of one of the more playable ones compared to the other shit that we do see this week. So that is something to note. But I'm going to take Fluffy to get this one done. by round, 4 or 5 decision, something along those lines. Dolidze is tough though, so maybe he does survive all 5. So give me Anthony Hernandez by decision, and that does it for all the picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 109. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you did like the breakdowns here, hit the like button on the video, share it with one of your friends. We've been doing really decent overall. Had a good card last week, had a great card the week before. 7 underdogs, 1 out of 12 fights, and we did cash in, clean sweep on our bets that week. So we've been doing really well, finding really good spots. If you do want to check out our actual betting spots, go to betkopicks.com. For $20 a month, you can see what I'm betting on every single week, the unit sizes, the book. You'll get a notification when I place the bet as well. So you can check all of that out. But overall, if you did like the breakdowns, like the video, and I will see you guys next weekend.